thing. Racism is racism. And you know that, I think, don't you?
Look at his face.
Yeah, obviously. That's why I said it.
So you said it knowing it's racist?
Yes.
Yeah. Just woke up.
Kanye is a man, bro.
Say, bro. Look, but no.
Move on.
We'll see.
Freaking, did you see any of the stuff I sent? I sent the video about, I talked about it earlier a little bit about Bill Maher. Let me play some of this.
Bill Maher went viral once again over the weekend after he weighed in on the artist formerly known as Kanye West's anti-Semitic statements. His guest of choice for this segment, former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, if you're wondering why Maher would bring a former head of state who is currently in the middle of his own re-election campaign to weigh in on the manic ravings of a deeply troubled American rap artist, you're not alone. But listening even briefly to the interview reveals Maher's rhetorical strategy here. This wasn't just about rebuking anti-Semitism. Any number of people or institutions could have done that, including, say, the Anti-Defamation League, even celebrities like Jennifer Aniston or Mos Def, take your pick. But Ye's week-long cycle of unhinged interviews, tweets, and leaked DMs was just a hook for a subject for which Maher has long demonstrated a significant appetite, erasing the ongoing humanitarian abuses by the Israeli government against Palestinians. Once you realize that this is the real subject of Maher's segment, the choice of guest becomes strikingly clear. Lest you think I'm being unfair, let's listen to the interview. After asking Netanyahu an initial jokey question about whether Israel will, quote, retaliate against the West for Ye's anti-Semitic remarks, Maher asked the former Israeli prime minister to respond to a series of quotes from American Congress members, which he argues are evidence that anti-Semitism is as big a problem on the left as it is on the right. He goes on to execute a familiar pivot, characterizing a substantive criticism of the treatment of Palestinians by Israel as de facto anti-Semitism.
I just want to read a few quotes from American congressmen, Congress people, rather, just to show that Kanye West's comment is not really out of order with some things that are said by people in more official positions. Here's one. Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. 10 years ago, if you read that to me, I thought that would be from Hezbollah. That's an American congressperson. Another American congressperson says the reality of Israel's apartheid government, goes on to say the occupation and ethnic cleansing Palestinians live with every day. Another one says Israel targets media sources so the world can't see Palestinians being massacred. I have three questions for you. Are you massacring Palestinians?
Yes.
Are you ethnic cleansing, and are you an apartheid state?
Yes and yes.
No, no, and no. I mean, these are all ridiculous charges against the one democracy in the Middle East. The one democracy that upholds human rights, that defends freedom, and is America's best allies.
What?
Now, I want to be very clear about this. The first quote Maher read about Israel having hypnotized the world, which is from Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, is inexcusable in its promotion of anti-Semitic tropes. Omar has acknowledged this and apologized, writing, in all sincerity, it was after my CNN interview that I heard from Jewish orgs that my use of the word hypnotize and the ugly sentiment it holds was offensive. I have no interest in defending that statement or pushing any Jewish person to accept that apology. None at all. But the next statement is of a very different character. Let's take a closer look. The statement is a tweet from Rashida Tlaib, which Maher notably does not include in full, nor does he include the broader context. Tlaib had tweeted, the reality of Israel's apartheid government, supported by billions in unconditional American funding, cannot be denied. We will not allow the president's visit to whitewash the brutality of the occupation and ethnic cleansing Palestinians must live with every day. Tlaib's statement quote tweeted a statement from Jewish Voice for Peace and Action, an organization of Jews and allies working for peace and equality for all Palestinians and Israelis. Jewish Voices for Peace's statement was directed at President Joe Biden, who was visiting Israel at the time, The organization tweeted a statement from Tlaib that criticized the Israeli government for forcing 1,000 Palestinians out of their homes in Masafer Yatta, a Palestinian community on the West Bank, so that the Israeli military could use the land for military training exercises. Quote, U.S. war crimes are literally happening under your nose, emphasized the Jewish pro-peace organization. UN human rights experts at the time urgently called on Israel and the international community to stop the forced evictions, which an Israeli court determined were lawful on the basis that, get this, aerial maps from the 1980s showed no permanent settlements. The rub, that the residents of the land are nomadic people who often occupy the region's caves rather than standalone structures, making the probative value of aerial maps moot at best and pretextual at worst. I say all of this to make it clear that Tlaib's tweet was not a subjective personal claim based in anti-Semitism. It was an assessment of a state, Israel, and its actions against a community, an assessment that's backed by human rights authorities like the UN and Amnesty International. These same humanitarian organizations have also described Israel as an apartheid state. For example, UN Special Rapporteur for the occupied region, Michael Link, explained earlier this year that, quote, there is today in the Palestinian territory occupied by Israel since 1967 a deeply discriminatory dual legal and political system that privileges the 700,000 Israeli Jewish settlers living in the 300 illegal Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. In a UN report released just this past Tuesday, UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese wrote, quote, realizing the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to self-determination requires dismantling once and for all the Israeli settler colonial occupation and its apartheid practices. And that's not all. Israel's former attorney general has characterized his own country as an apartheid regime. Former chair of Israel's Meretz party echoed these sentiments in 2006, accusing Netanyahu of operating at the service of the apartheid lobby. There's a long list of Israeli leaders who have echoed this claim, and you can read about them in this MSNBC op-ed by Mehdi Hassan, but I won't belabor the point. It is obviously the case that if criticizing a state's actions were considered to be de facto anti-Semitism, that would provide a level of cover to said state to enact horrific abuses without any international criticism. And it would make anti-Semites out of a significant number of Israeli citizens, American Jews, and Israeli political leaders. Describing Israel as having occupied Palestinian territory is uncontroversial at this point, as is the two-tiered system of rights in the region, aka apartheid. Netanyahu all but admits this in the interview. Take a listen.
But could you become an apartheid state? The critics of Israel here in America and some in your own country talk about the fact that Israel is kind of a population time bomb. And that if 51% of Israel would become Arab, because you do have Arab citizens who are actually treated better in Israel with more rights and more freedoms than they are in their own and other Arab countries. But if 51% of Israel became Arab, then you would have to become an apartheid state. Is that something that you think about as much as your critics do?
Because I think they don't have the facts right. I mean, they're about 20% of Israel's population is Arabs, and they're really the only Arabs in the Middle East who enjoy full and equal civic rights in the Israeli democracy. And I've also made it an effort to incorporate them in the tremendous success story that is Israel. And I'm happy to see that that is happening. But the demographic balance is maintained. The most important thing is the democratic balance is maintained because everyone has a right to be part of the Israeli democracy and the Israeli success story. I don't think that's a real issue. I think it's a bogus charge.
Why you keep looking down?
Notice that Netanyahu compares the rights of Palestinians to other Arabs in the region, not to the rights of Jewish Israelis, whose rights quite obviously eclipse those of Palestinians. And his statements about maintaining the, quote, democratic balance give the game away. A commitment to having an explicitly Jewish state in a region which is overwhelmingly Muslim means denying the Muslim population equal participation in the political process. In April of last year, Human Rights Watch released a report detailing why Israel's actions met the definition of apartheid. They cite the same demographic threat Netanyahu openly alludes to here, along with policies aimed at mitigating said threat, like concentrating most Palestinians in dense enclaves where they lack access to basic needs like water and live under harsh authoritarian military rule. And yet speaking out about this invites harsh pushback from the political establishment when Rashida Tlaib spoke out against progressives who ignore the plight of Palestinians, or so-called progressives who ignore the plight of Palestinians. Former DNC chair and Clinton booster Debbie Wasserman Schultz accused Tlaib of anti-Semitism. To be clear, anti-Semitism is real and rising in the United States. Who can forget the chilling images from Charlottesville, where dozens of men with torches chanted, "The Jews will not replace us," before one white supremacist killed counter-protester Heather Heyer with his car. The following year, an anti-Semite killed 11 Jewish worshippers at the Tree of Life synagogue and wounded 6 others, described as the deadliest rampage against Jewish people in U.S. history. Despite the conservative leanings of these white nationalists and their at times open identification with conservatives like Donald Trump, Trump avoided condemning the Charlottesville anti-Semitism. Remember this from the 2020 debates?
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do
specifically
that,
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
Like Trump, Netanyahu engages in both siderism in this interview, saying the communists blame the Jews for being capitalist, the capitalists blame the communists for being the Jews for being communists. Rather, if you have a problem, blame the Jews. But that's a gross oversimplification of American history. It was Jewish communists who were disproportionately targeted during the McCarthy era for advocating for a pro-worker progressive communist government, not the other way around. Joe McCarthy was documented as having defended Nazis, and the House Committee on Un-American Activities that targeted so-called subversives who dared to hold anti-establishment political views targeted Jews. One after the other, the people in effect put on trial by the committee were Jews. Not exclusively so, but enough to make the case, writes historian Michael Friedland. Certainly, anti-Semitism can be found everywhere, including on the left. But in this interview, Maher and Netanyahu do not mete out their critiques evenly. In fact, they applaud Donald Trump for being, quote, good to Israel. And while Maher attempts some critique of Trump for his role in 1-6, Bibi Netanyahu demurs.
And there is no doubt that Donald Trump, as president, was good to Israel, got the capital moved to Jerusalem, which had been on the table for a very long time. And these accords that you mentioned happened into that administration. But can you keep those two ideas in your head at the same time, that he was good to Israel, but he's also a dangerous demagogue who tried to have a coup in this country and does not respect democracy or democratic norms?
Well, you know, I've had enough with Israeli politics, so I'm going to leave that to you.
With anti-Semitism on the rise, it is important to call out anti-Semitism when it rears its head. And part of that is calling out anti-Semitism even when it's being offered up by folks who are, quote unquote, good to Israel for geopolitical reasons, even as they fail to support Jewish people who are attacked on the basis of their faith. This episode of Bill Maher's show was ostensibly a conversation, remember, about Ye's genuinely anti-Semitic remarks. So I ask you again, why was only a sliver of time devoted to anti-Jewish sentiment from a Trump-aligned conservative? Why the pivot to criticizing legitimate humanitarian concerns from a progressive congresswoman who criticized not Jewish people, but a country whose actions against the people of Palestine are at this point uncontroversially understood as occupation and apartheid.
Yeah, I know I'm killing y'all with this, but freaking, it's an important interview. What's her name got fired from the Hill for trying to do this interview, basically do this story. And so it's kind of a long story because I follow this shit like crazy. But so this is her doing that show that the other chick was trying to do that she got fired for doing. So they let her do it. She twisted it a bit, so I guess that the tweak. And then the other chick was Jewish, so that might have been why it carried more weight coming from a Jewish lady. I talked about her. I'm trying to think of her name right now, but it's freaking not. I'm losing it. I can't think of her name. I'm sure it's in the comments. Hold on, I gotta look this up.
What up, O?
Yeah, what's up?
What's up? What's up?
Yeah.
Y'all fellas doing all right this evening?
What'd you say, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
No,
How
I
about
said y'all
yourself?
doing. Yeah, I'm good, man. You know, sat down a few minutes thinking, you know, I'll be ready to go into the podcast in a few minutes and turn into a nap. I don't know how, like,
Katie Helper, that's the name. Sorry, y'all. I had to find that. I knew somebody was gonna say it. But anyways, Katie Helper was the lady who got fired from the same. This is The Hill. The show that we're watching is The Hill. It's Rising is the name of the show on The Hill, and they're the company who fired this chick for doing that, trying to do this same segment. And I'm flipping through the comments, and somebody said this is the last day for Brianna Joy Gray on the show. She might get it too. Did y'all hear any of that? What she was talking about in there? And also, could y'all see why it's like edgy and could possibly get her fired, and how it got the other chick fired?
twos.
Yeah, I see it because they don't want the truth coming out. You know, everything points to it. Ain't this the same country that killed the journalist? They got killed a couple of months back for being over there.
Well, that was
What?
Saudi, wasn't it?
Yeah. What are you talking about? Jamel Khashoggi, whatever his name is. Yeah, that.
No, the lady who got killed not too long ago in Israel.
Oh yeah, in Israel. Yeah. She totally did, and then they were lying about it. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same country. So it's like, bro, they don't want you talking about that shit, and then the American government having their hands in it, and you see how he pivoted when they got to talking about, you know, what Trump did. Yeah, it's bullshit, bro.
Yeah. So it's crazy though. The conservatives have a thing for, let's say, the Republicans. The Republican Party seems to have a thing for Israel, and so it means that you can't really say anything bad about Israel and be Republican. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't want truth coming out. So anytime you start putting the spotlight on the truth that goes against their agenda and their propaganda, you out of there. She lucky she just got fired and didn't get sniped.
Yeah. She was calling it like it is, and that's it. And that's like the name of the show was yesterday. You get punished for telling the truth, and that's what happens. You know, some truths, you're not supposed to speak out loud. What I was saying in my monologue, I don't know if y'all heard it, but it was like, I feel like the most offensive thing you could say to someone is the truth. What I mean is the thing that would hurt them the most. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if you really know them, you know, and you say something out loud that should never be spoken. they gonna be mad.
Or they hit you with that question. I got a question for you, and I really want you to tell me the truth. I don't want you to lie to me. I want you to tell me the truth. Then you tell them, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that." Oh, bitch, believe it.
Is freaking this one right here is about